What widely accepted fact do you know is wrong? If you touch a baby bird, the parents will abandon, kill it. Most birds don't do that. If you help a baby bird back into its nest, as long as you try not to touch the nest a lot, then everything should be fine. If it's an adult bird you rescued, then not touching it for a day does help with it getting your scent off, but not 100% needed. I know this because my mom and I rescue wild animals when they are hurt or still babies and release them when we are able to. That Einstein failed math, was otherwise a poor student. In my school there was a poster of Einstein with a quote, "Do not worry about your difficulties in mathematics." I assure you mine are greater. It was supposed to be an inspirational quote, showing how even the greatest mathematicians struggled with math. But I always saw it as Einstein telling someone to shut up about their petty math problems while he was busy trying to figure out how the universe worked. Your head does not lose proportionately more heat than the rest of your body. It's about the same. This one particularly annoys me. Yes, it's true if you're fully clothed but not wearing a hat. Obviously the only unclothed part of your body will lose more body heat than the rest. But no, if you're naked you're probably going to lose less body heat through the part of your body that's covered in hair. That chloroform quickly knocks you out. The bigger myth is that any idiot can safely render someone unconscious with minimal effort. No, there's actually a fine art to that process, and we pay people a ton of money to do it. They're called anesthesiologists. The problem is that the difference between enough to reliably knock this specific person out for an hour and so much it kills them is vanishingly small. It's terrifyingly easy to kill someone with the kind of meds that knock people out. Hell, even the old blackjack to the base of the skull approach is fraught. If the person is out for more than 30 seconds, there's a good chance you've given them brain damage. Movies use human unconsciousness capriciously whenever they need to advance the plot and stick a character in a tough spot. Reality is different ball game, and playing it like it's the movies is a great way to catch a manslaughter charge. I was explaining this to my brother while I was playing Hitman. Specifically the brain damage part where you knock someone out and they're out for the rest of the level. Also, silencers aren't silent, like, at all. They just make it harder to pinpoint where the shot came from. Astronomer here. People always say Jupiter protects us from getting hit by asteroids because its larger gravitational pull attracts them. I believe it was on a certain popular astronomy show. In fact, this does not appear to be the case. See, while Jupiter does indeed interact with more things, it is both good and bad. Some things hit Jupiter or get flung away. Some things get flung directly at Earth that otherwise wouldn't. Most famously, in 1770 Lexell's comet passed closer to Earth than any other comet ever observed, missing us by just 6 Earth-Moon widths. Turns out Jupiter flung it straight at us right before that. So yeah, we almost died thanks to Jupiter. And good and bad comes from having it as a neighbor. Left and right-brained, people who are either more artistic or more numbers-based. Just as inaccurate as the parts of your tongue that taste different things, yet people still say it. I really wish people wouldn't limit their own potential like that. Sorry, I just don't do math. I'm more of a creative type. Or, oh, I think too logically for art. Like, what? Look at Leonardo da Vinci. The dude invented a flying machine and painted the Mona Lisa at the same time. Creativity and logic are not mutually exclusive. Schizophrenia has nothing to do with a split personality. There is also a pretty big difference between someone being moody and someone who has bipolar disorder. Drives me crazy when someone says that someone is so bipolar if they change their minds often or are in a bad mood. People generally don't know about the severity of the ups and downs. People do this with a variety of mental health issues, and it's frustrating and unhelpful for all of them. The people that say, "I'm so OCD because I like to keep things organized." No, that's not OCD. You can keep things clean and organized with OCD, but just because you do it doesn't mean you have it. It's a disorder for a reason. Not just some funny quirk that makes you put your dishes in the sink after eating or wiping crumbs off a table. Or with ADHD. People will get distracted by something and go, "Oh haha, I'm so ADHD. Squirrel." Nope. Still not right. It can be a debilitating disorder that makes living daily life a nightmare. It's way more than just getting distracted sometimes. I'm not going to get into it because it's too much to type, but it's so much more. And bonus points for when someone with ADHD tells someone else and the non-ADHD person responds with, "We're all a little ADHD sometimes." Nope. Again, not how this works. Napoleon wasn't small. He was just the victim of good propaganda by the eventual winners. Also, his personal guard had a strict height requirement, so he was always around someone taller than him. NASA spent millions inventing a pen that worked in space, and the Russians used pencils. Total bollocks. The Fisher Pen Company was independent and developed its space pen with zero investment from NASA. American astronauts began using mechanical pencils in space. Tiny fragments of graphite and graphite dust floating around the spacecraft was not ideal because graphite is conductive. It's also combustible, so everyone was keen to find an alternative. Fisher patented its first, zero-gravity, pen in 1965. And in 1967 NASA began using it. By 1969 Russia were also buying them for their space missions. Reportedly both NASA and the Soviet Space Company received the same discount for their bulk purchases. Thank you. Thus one is a perfect example of misunderstanding something complicated, the US federal procurement system, and drawing the exact wrong conclusion because of it. The Russians were smarter because they just used a pencil. A similar myth is that the Dodd would deliberately spend $600 on a single hammer. Rather, this was an accounting artifact due to contractors claiming a flat overhead price on a spare parts buy. Split up evenly amongst all the spare parts. The cheap parts look ridiculously overpriced. But the expensive stuff, like engines, look ridiculously cheap. And then we ignore the cheap price on engines and focus only on the expensive hammers. Goldfishes really do not have a memory span of 5 seconds. They actually remember things for months, recognize their owners, and are able to distinguish them from other people. I had 2 goldfish when I was younger. Their names were Paula and Mr. Fishy. When Mr. Fishy died, Paula spent the next couple of days frantically swimming around the tank trying to find him. It was heartbreaking to watch. That you have to wait 24 hours to report someone missing in the USA. There is no law about waiting. You don't have to push to make the police cooperate and list the person missing immediately when you suspect something isn't right. Don't lose precious time. It's extremely important if the person truly is missing. That you swallow 8 spiders a year in your sleep. The origins of that myth is so weird. It made its way around message boards in the 90s and possibly earlier. Then at some point, the Snopes Usenet board pre-website claimed that the myth was invented by a tech journalist who wanted to illustrate how lies spread on the internet. Except that Snopes lied. The journalist never existed. So now there's a second layer to the myth, that being the myth of who invented it and why. That cracking your knuckles too often will cause arthritis. This thread reads like a spotter's guide to stuff my mum told me when I was young. That medieval ancient people only lived to be approximately 32 years old. And at that age, they were considered ancient. That estimate is an average, which means it accounts for high infant-child mortality. Lots of ancient people lived to their 80s and older. If you made it to 30, chances are good you're making it another 30 plus years. Also that everyone in the Middle Ages was getting married at 12. Not true. You could have a wedding arranged as an infant, but marriage would generally not happen until late teens. Even then, that's only royalty and nobility. The average serf didn't own land and therefore never had a legal marriage at all. Peasants would just start cohabitating and making babies. Clarification: I'm talking pre-1300s. Plague happens and people start owning shit SMH. We are experiencing a temporary high volume of phone calls. Your call is important to us. This and, please listen carefully as our options have recently changed. The first is to make people more likely to wait happily. Second is to try and get them to pay attention to the options which haven't been changed in 20 years. As someone who works in a position taking calls all day, both of these tend to, at least with us, be 100% honest. People have an idea that calling a business support will result in a phone ringing at a center with like 100 plus people. The queue was only 4. Why did it take an hour to get to me? In reality, some businesses have hardcore understaffed support. As in, The business I work for has around 10,000 plus customers and a support staff of 4. In regards to the options thing, you would be surprised at how little people seem to care about where they go, and then they get pissed when their randomly selected number can't assist them. What do you mean you can't fix my shit? I called business. Right. Well, sir. This is billing and your issue is tech related. If you would like me to help with billing, we can do that. However, I cannot fix your equipment. This is bullshit. Every day. All day. We are here for you during these unprecedented times. Single quote. I work in higher education. They have been saying this throughout the pandemic. They announced yesterday that staff will not receive their annual raise or bonus. They have also furloughed staff. Faculty, which includes administration, will receive those raises and bonus, and none have been furloughed. Even in the email where they told us we would not receive the raise bonus, it was this shit, we're here for you. We appreciate you. Blah. 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 I feel you. I am a nurse at a university-owned hospital, and the budgets of the hospital and the university are very intertwined. In order to refund students' room and board expenses from last semester, they took away a large percentage of our 403B employer contribution, and we will not be getting raises for at least 2 years. Upper management has not been affected at all. But yeah, the "we're in this together" emails and "heroes work here" signs definitely make up for that.